Hello again, and welcome back to the HBA of Northwest Michigan Building Better podcast. I'm Lauren Tucker, the Executive Officer of the HBA here in Northern Michigan. And joining me today is the amazing and talented Julie Bravender, a loan officer from Lake Michigan Credit Union. She is also one of our HBA's fantastic board members, and she's currently serving in her third term. And Julie, you told me that you categorize yourself as a serial remodeler. What does that mean?
That means I don't know if I do what I do for a living or participate with home building for a living because I love remodeling, or if I love remodeling because what I do. But every house I've ever built, lived in, I look at it and I see what it could be. And so no matter how average or how ugly, I look at, say, how could I make it charming or how could I give it character?
Well, that's so cool.
Every time I see a house, my husband goes, oh.
That is so funny. I was just going to say, you and your husband just completed, was it last year, a major remodel on your home in Suttons Bay?
Probably a 2-year remodel right during the heart of COVID. We were the house with the never-ending dumpster out front. That's how I defined our address.
I bet your neighbors loved that.
They did, but things take longer, and every time you would have something scheduled, so it like, oh, I have COVID, I can't come in, and then the rest of the staff of the contractors had COVID and couldn't come in, or there were supply chain issues, and things just took a long time.
Well, that's excellent and very convenient to be a member of the HBA. I think you shared with me that on that project you worked with only HBA members. Is that correct?
We certainly tried to. There were times with availability that, I don't know whether I checked every single subcontractor of the subcontractors, but I certainly believe in trying to do HBA members.
Well, I'm sure if they weren't a member, you definitely encouraged them to become one. And
absolutely.
I thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Julie, you have been one of our greatest recruiters, at least since I've been here. So thank you for that and sharing the good work of the HBA. Speaking of the HBA, we are almost 3 weeks out from our 2025 Home Expo.
I am so looking forward to this. Do you know, this is probably, I've worked every expo since 1987 in one capacity or another. I wasn't always the primary HBA member, but every bank or credit union or mortgage company that I've ever worked for, I always did Home Expo. So
that is incredible. And that actually leads right into this interesting information that I found out about the history of the home show. This year is going to be our 40th annual home show at the Grand Traverse Resort. And a big shout out to Lake Michigan Credit Union, who is our presenting sponsor again this year. They're a tremendous partner. Not only do they financially support the expo, but also host and facilitate one of our most valuable seminars that's offered to our expo attendees, and that's our builder panels, which I definitely want to talk to you about because I think that's one of the most valuable things that we do there for the public. But I found out, being our 40th annual expo, with the exception of the 2021 Expo not happening. So technically our 41st year of being the host of the Expo, but our 40th show. One of our amazing committee members, Trisha Kirby from Builders First Source, shared with me that her father used to work with Coldwell Banker, and they've recently been remodeling their offices, and he found a real treasure that he framed and gave to Trisha. And it is an actual real live advertisement for the Traverse City Home Show presented by the Chamber, the Traverse City Chamber. So
really?
Before the HBA took on this show, which I estimate either 1983, 1984, that was produced by the Chamber. And what's interesting about this ad is it's hosted at the Park Place Motor Inn. So I've done a little sleuthing, and as best as I can tell, this advertisement is sometime between 1964, because the Park Place Hotel closed in September of 1963 due to financial issues, and then was purchased in December of 1963 and reopened in 64 as the Park Place Motor Inn. And as best as I can tell, it kept that name for a minimum of 10 years, but maybe in that 20-year window before we took over. So this show took place anywhere between 1964 and 1984. It was 4 days long, Julie. Can you imagine what our exhibitors would say about that?
Those are long days. But even 10, 15 years ago, we had longer days than we do now.
I believe it.
But it's a challenge when you have exhibitors coming from out of town. And I think even bigger yet is if it's a builder, for them to man that all day,
And
every
take
day
time
with
away
no
from the
break,
job site.
it takes a lot.
It does.
When I started doing the show, I remember East Junior High, and I think there was one year at West Junior High, which had to have been somewhere in that little 4 or 5 year window.
Yeah.
But in East Junior High, you would be out there in the gyms and the cafeterias, and they had huge tarps that we had to unroll, and everybody would tape things down and then tape down all the wires and the cords and haul in tables and chairs. And
Right. And like one of the huge undertakings for the expo, and so thankful that we're hosted at the Grand Traverse Resort because they have a team that does this for us. But setting the electrical grid for this show, thinking like this year we have, I think, 174, 175 booths, and setting the electrical grid for all of that. They call them spiders. There's like those crazy floor things, and then you have giant cords that connect those. Some of those are still hanging in the storage room at the HBA, believe it or not.
I remember those.
So when this show was hosted at the Park Place Motor Inn, not only was it 4 days, but it also, the hours on the weekdays, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, was from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then that Saturday was 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. And do you have any guess what the entrance fee was?
$5.
Nope, 50 cents for adults and 25 cents for students. So that leads me to believe that this particular advertisement is quite a few years old.
I would say that inflation has
Definitely hit. And folks, you can attend this year's show for $12 at the door or $10 ahead of time. So a little bit more, but still very reasonable. So you mentioned that we've been at East Junior High, and again, dating us a little bit because it's now known to our current listeners as East Middle School, or West Junior High, again, West Middle School, at the Park Place and at the Grand Traverse Resort, where we've been for a number of years.
It's set up better at the resort to have a convention center where they can have carpeted floors for one, because that's a lot easier on the feet, and
It really is.
restrooms and not have to fight around the volleyball game scheduled in the next room.
Absolutely. There's a lot of opportunity at the resort, and quite frankly, it's the only venue large enough to hold us at this point. We're not quite the largest home show in the world, like the National Association's International Builders Show, but we are the largest in Northern Michigan, and quite frankly, it's the only place that can hold us. So we're lucky to have such great partners here. So a huge shout out to our committee members who plan and execute this event, being a 100% member-driven organization. This committee is headed up by Chairperson Carla Shappy from MSU FCU. Other members of the committee are Kendra Nickerson from At Home Cabinetry, John Klinglesmith from Nicolay Bank, Alex Eicher from the Talon Group, Title and Escrow Agency, of course, Trisha Kirby from Builders First Source, Heidi Flake from 45th Property and Power, and of course you, Julie, from Lake Michigan Credit Union, and also Marcia Stratton from IdeaStream, and Tamara Weedlake from Northland Storage, based out of Petoskey and soon coming to Traverse City. This is one of the best committees to be a part of, don't you think?
I love Expo.
Yeah.
It's always been a way to connect with the people that want to build, and I think that's why I'm at Lake Michigan Credit Union. Is new construction is their claim to fame, their passion product. We have the #1 construction program in the state, and if you take the next highest institution behind us and double the number of construction loans they do, we still do more.
Oh, that's incredible.
It is. They really, really support the builders, and so
And that's a tough that's a tough financial market to work in because construction can be volatile. There's so much that happens outside of your control. So that's incredible to have that resource that's willing to work along in a challenging environment.
Well, construction has been great for the last, say, 5 to 10 years, but there were a couple of years there where I remember 2 years, 2008 to 2010, where I don't think I did a single construction loan. The crickets were chirping, and so many of our workers and builders left Michigan, and so they're rebuilding that. But man, we could still use probably
Those were very dark
50%
days
more
for our industry, and you're absolutely right. There was a mass exodus in our industry during that time, and that has led to the continued labor shortage that we experience here in Northern Michigan, but really across the nation in our industry. Another area where the HBA feels very strongly about workforce development and promoting the YP builders. Julie, you were a huge spokesperson for the creation of that new membership type for the YP builder. And, I'm actually technically still a YP based on the National Association's definition. Anyone 45 or under still fits that criteria. And Julie and the other leaders of our association did take that opportunity to offer like a price break and a schedule for moving your way through over a 5-year period to reaching to your full membership dues, but to support those builders. And I thank you for your work in that space.
Well, it's so crucial because even in loan officers, there's a huge gap. There's a lot of us, say 50, 55 and up, and there's a new crop of people that have gone into the business. But just like the contractors, there's a hole there of a bunch of people didn't go into it for a number of years. And if we don't help that next generation of people go into the business, there'll be a shortage of everything.
Well, I am thankful.
Not money, probably.
Probably not with the way things are going, but I'm thankful to have members like you that have that vision for the future and are willing to mentor and share. And I've witnessed you doing that with young loan officers within your company and competitors. So thank you for that. Not only does that community put on our largest non-dues revenue generation source, like the Expo success is what makes sure that we can do the amazing programs that we have at the HBA. But if you join the Expo committee, sometimes you get fed.
Yeah, well, rumor has it that one of the women on there makes the most fantastic cinnamon rolls.
Oh man, they are literally sinful. She makes them homemade from scratch. Kendra Nickerson from At Home Cabinetry. She also has a famous breakfast casserole. And another rumor has it she may have offered to feed everybody for load-in and setup day on Friday.
Well, that's a way to get people to volunteer.
Right? So there's a little incentive for our members and listeners out there. If you would like a really delicious home-cooked meal and come experience some really organized chaos, you can come help us set up the show on February 14th, a great way to spend Valentine's Day.
Well, I'm looking forward to the builder seminars again.
Yes.
Last year we tried to call it builder speed dating, but I think the better term is meet the builder. And I literally had a prospective home building couple come up to me afterwards and say thank you because they had been told or under the impression that there was no builder that they could get lined up for 3 or 4 years. Everybody was that far out, and they heard our advertisement on the radio. And during the Meet the Builder event, we went down the line of builders and said, if somebody was ready to go with plans right now, how soon could you put a project into place? And every single one of them had a spot within the year.
Yeah, that's a huge myth bust. You mentioned COVID. Our industry was hit hard with recovering from COVID and the pandemic. Logistics, long turnaround time for shipping for certain items, anything that had petroleum in it was behind just because, that short period where things were completely shut down, it took a lot to get back up to speed and then meet the demand. I think when people are forced to stay in their homes for any length of time, a serial remodeler could certainly identify a project or maybe be like, hey, why wait? And why don't we jump into this now? So I know there was a big boom um, leading out of the pandemic. But that is like most of the builders do have time to move things into their schedules within a year. So that's another myth busted. So one thing we haven't mentioned is not only is this our 40th anniversary, but being Valentine's Day weekend, the theme this year is appropriately love your home, right?
I think if anybody forgot Valentine's Day, a new master suite remodel would probably get them out of the doghouse.
Yeah, I bet it would. Or, maybe that closet you've always been dreaming of, place to put all your shoes. So love your home. The trend that we're seeing in our industry with the scarcity of homes available on the market is people staying where they are longer rather than relocating or looking to build. Do you see that trend from the financial side? Like, is there more home equity loans?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, the reason, the construction lineup was so huge was interest rates were so low during COVID. And then when rates shot up, a lot of people who thought they were going to build put it on hold. And so all the builders that said, hey, I'm behind, I'm lined up for 3 years, now had openings. But also people are hunkering in. If they have a 3% interest rate mortgage,
Yeah.
they're looking at, could I remodel this and use a home equity loan to keep that mortgage rather than move somewhere else? And so
That's a good point. And
it's big. People don't want to give that up.
Yeah, and with some inflationary pressure, their money might not necessarily go as far as it did a couple of years ago.
Well, another thing to remember was all of the bidding wars out there. People are afraid to sell their house because they are not sure that if they do and get theirs committed to sell, that they can find or be the successful bidder to go somewhere else. And so the remodeling aspect is a way to make it work for your family and not take that risk.
Yeah. So I want to touch back on the builder speed dating. Do you think that there's something there? Like maybe we could call it come flirt with your builder this year?
Well, I don't know. You might get the builder's wives a little annoyed at you, but regardless, we want to have people come meet the builders because one of the things that people tend to do is they dream about their retirement home or their dream house, and they'll draft the plans and they'll get everything they'll spend years on it. And then find out, oh my gosh, it's going to cost double my budget, or there's no one out there that I can work with, or the person I thought I was going to work with is not available. And it's really a kind of simultaneous juggling of balls or putting a jigsaw puzzle together on a revolving table, because you need to have conversations with your builder about what you want to build. You need to have conversations with a banker about your budget. You need to look at your plans, but if you start out building the Taj Mahal when your budget is only half of a Taj Mahal,
Right.
then
Expectation versus reality is a real thing.
right. Or, you can get everything lined up and have your budget, and then the interest rates go up, and all of a sudden your budget's out the window. So there are so many factors that I think starting simultaneous conversations as you think about it can do wonders for less changes later.
Yeah. So I'm excited about this year's show. It's going to be the largest we've had probably ever. The success of last year's show afforded us the opportunity to add a new room for more exhibitors this year. And I think going along that trend of people potentially remodeling, there's more projects than a new build. So we've got contractors from landscaping, fencing. We have, of course, the financial institutions, insurance, title, remodeling, new build, all of it, painting, everything is available there. So if you are thinking about an upcoming project, the Home Expo is a great place to come to meet the experts, ask questions. Another seminar that we're excited to bring this year, housing has been a huge hot button. It was talked about in this last election cycle more than ever. And there are so many different reasons. Some of it the scarcity of land, the cost of materials, the scarcity of the labor force. We talked about that many of the professionals left the industry and found other lines of work and haven't returned back. So there's a lot of factors that lead into that, but also just knowing a few things before you enter into that idea of building, knowing your township, knowing the permitting process, identifying your builder, making sure your plans make sense. Like all of those things are so important. So we're hosting a housing advocacy seminar, partnering with the state association to bring some of those issues to light. And bringing, hopefully, some of our municipality guests will be in the room as well to add some information and shed some light on what that process looks like.
That's so important. Over the years, every lender in town probably has stories about things that have happened, but I have seen people get all ready to close on their construction loan, and the subdivision does not want to approve their plans, or, gee, I need a variance from my township, or just any number of things. I have a client right now came in and she split a lot off of her house and came in ready to start the construction loan. But what she didn't know is that it also needs to be split off her mortgage.
Oh my
And she
goodness.
has a 3% mortgage. She doesn't want to refinance that mortgage.
Oh my gosh.
And so there are just so many factors that the expertise is out there, but you need to talk to lots of people early on.
There's been a ton of change within the townships and the way that they approach zoning. In many cases, it's been positive. East Bay Township is working on a new development that is shifting their density more to the areas that make sense, closer to town, revitalizing that space over by 4 Mile. And that's an example of a township that's doing some good zoning practices, rewriting their master plan to be set up for growth. Other changes is that the Great Lakes are now designated as part of our international waterway. So that brings in some new challenges for anyone that's building on that lakeshore, which would be East Grand Traverse Bay, West Grand Traverse Bay, out into Lake Michigan. You are now dealing with not only your township and Michigan Eagle, which is the governing body of our shorelines. You're also dealing with Army Corps of Engineers that need to sign off on things. So there's just some challenges that the average human doesn't necessarily know because you don't live in residential construction.
I think at our last board meeting, they were talking about what percentage of the average home build is in the cost of regulations. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, in the state of Michigan, it's roughly $98,000 on average. But if you think about it, isn't it? It's about 20% of the cost of construction, whether you are remodeling or new construction. About 20% of your final cost can be associated to that regulatory space, whether it's permitting, studies that were required, extra materials that need to meet the specific energy or residential building code. And the state of Michigan has not adopted, at this time anyway, a new residential building code since 2015. So typically that code comes from the International Code Council every 3 years, and that's handed down to our federal government, and then they decide what will be our national residential code, and then they kick it down to the state level, and the individual states are able to adopt the code as they see fit. There's some other issues that are causing some pressure to adopt either the residential code from 21. We're hoping that our state will decide to adopt residential code 2024 because the national federal government, USDA, and HUD are requiring any state that are going to use their financial programs to have adopted either 21 or 24. And our builders and our state association support 24 because it's got a lot more pathways and flexibility to reaching the level of energy efficiency that is necessary. And this is going to be more of an impact on our brothers and sisters in construction in southern Michigan. We tend to build more custom homes than we do neighborhoods at this point, and are already building at a higher level than what's required by the code. But mandating certain levels of insulation and that type of thing can add a lot of cost to the construction. And with 20% being wrapped up there in regulatory, there's less money to go towards the actual construction, labor, and your finishes.
It's a tough problem because there is no easy answer. I don't think land values are going down in our area. People love here. People want to move to northern Michigan. And you can't tell the builders that all of your employees are just going to get paid less because their employees will go work for someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And the labor force in our area is already earning a higher rate based on that demand. So we are seeing a huge flood into the market from builders and contractors from downstate, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because there is a lot of opportunity here. And our builders stand behind their projects. They rely on word of mouth and their reputation to continue their business, and it's really important to remember that they want the environment and energy efficiency to be aligned as well, but you have to do it in a way that makes sense. So this is a brief overview of residential construction code, but there's so many factors that go into why things cost what they do and why things take the time that they do. So again, this year's expo is February 15th and 16th. If you want to know who can build and how to build, this is a great place to check out. Grab your sweetie and make a day of it, right?
Well, and don't miss the seminars. It's great to walk around the expo floor and see the new products and talk to people, but if you really want some answers to questions, to listen to a Meet the Builder seminar and have them all talk about what are the things that people need to think about when they start to build and what is their passion. Like, some builders prefer first-time homes. Other people want to do vacation homes. And so to hear what their specialties are can help you narrow down.
And barn dominiums have been very popular
They
recently.
have.
So there's some builders that specialize in barn dominiums, some that specialize, actually, you were talking about a customer that split their lot. There's been some changes in zoning in Traverse City specifically, and some loosening in some of the townships that are allowing for accessory dwelling units or ADUs to be built.
And tiny homes. I'm getting a lot of requests for tiny homes.
I can really see the value in a tiny home. I mean, the amount of square footage to have to clean, even just in my modest ranch, is a lot.
But again, you get back to the township regulations because it used to be that there was a minimum square footage in a lot of places, and that is being changed. At one point, the trend was everybody wanted to be at that 5-acre parcel in the country, and so they said minimum zoning in some places 5 acres. Well, now that doesn't make sense when you're trying to get costs down.
Yeah.
So now the zoning is being pulled back and saying, okay, let's look at 1-acre lots or half-acre lots.
It's far more energy efficient and cost effective to build up rather than out. That's just kind of science. So a couple new things this year. It's our largest show ever. Tons of vendors, on the floor demonstrations. And this year we're actually bringing in a vendor village. This is separate from the exhibitors, but I love, the hand-painted signs and the craftsmanship and the artistry of one-of-a-kind home decor options. So we'll have a vendor village, so you bring your cash or credit cards so that you're not only just meeting people, but there is an opportunity to get some really unique things. And then there are the things that we've always done, our continued traditions. Your entrance ticket doubles as your entry into the grand prize drawing. There will be a number of amazing prizes that are all donated by our exhibitors. And I believe our grand prize drawing this year, again, is a really beautiful grill from DTE Energy. So a huge shout out to DTE Energy for providing that. Plus, this year with the theme, Love Your Home, our expo guests will crown the People's Choice Best Booth. now, the People's Choice Best Booth for as long as I can remember has actually been Precision Plumbing and Heating. So
great booth.
they do. They really go all out, and I'm excited to see what they do today. So if you do attend the expo, make sure to fill out your ticket and drop it into one of the many drawing boxes around the room, and for your chance to win one of several amazing prizes, but also help us crown our best booth winner. And that best booth winner gets a free entry space into next year's show. So that's really coveted. Is there anything else people need to know about the expo?
Not a
Tickets are on sale now.
Tickets
right?
are on sale now. Yes.
Tickets are on sale now. Again, you can purchase those online. You can check out our seminar schedule and our demonstration schedule online as well, right on our homepage, which is hbagta.com. That'll lead you to the expo goodies. You can purchase your ticket for $10 ahead of the show. Beginning on February 15th, there'll be $12 at the door, cash or credit. And we're really excited to have the best show ever. Right?
Right.
Thank you so much for being here today, Julie. Thank you for your participation as a board member or leader in this industry. And I am just so impressed with your history with the expo. I knew that you were the expo queen because you knew everything when I joined this committee, this job. I can remember going to the home show with my parents and checking out all of the exhibits. And then later, in the early 2000s, probably 2009, 10, being there pregnant with Peyton, my youngest, Jude. And Peyton grabbed one of the balloons and shoved it in her shirt and was walking around with the pregnant belly as well. We still have the Home Depot kids aprons, too, that still exist in our home. So this is a Traverse City tradition that we're happy to continue. And thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having, and I look forward to it this year.
Yes, and folks, this has been another episode of the HBA Northwest Michigan Building Better podcast. Julie, thank you for being our guest, and thank you to Lake Michigan Credit Union for being great supporters of the HBA. We couldn't do it without our amazing partners, and tune in until next time.